This conference will now be recorded.
We had elaborate discussion on assessment of wound according to Ayurvedic principle. Today we will try to move on to the description of the wound management. Now, wound management in brief is studied under 60 heads. 60 protocols are mentioned in Sushruta, and that's the Shashti Upakram. Probably there is no system in anywhere in the world which details the management of wound to this extent, where every aspect of the wound and any stage of complication of the wound is effectively managed with a specific protocol. Of course, practically to make use of all the 60 protocols in clinical practice may be difficult, but many of them, they are very really practically useful and are relevant today as well as they can be a solution to the future. We will try to minimize our discussion to such issues which will solve the problems of the future as such. Now, all that 60 upakramas, I will not name all those, waste time on naming those 60 upakramas. And out of these 60 upakramas, the first 11, that's the starting from Apadarpana till Virejana, these are considered as the treatment for the initial stage of the Vrana, that's the Vrana Shofa. Whereas they also can be used in the management of the Vrana once they have become the wound. Now, Vrana Shofa and Vrana, the differences we have discussed in the previous session. So before the Nija Vrana occurs, you will have that stage of Vrana Shofa, which we have considered as something like the inflammation, the process of the inflammation. So the measures by which the inflammation can be controlled and the wound can be prevented. So the first 11 areas, uh, excuse me, some of those who have not muted their mic, please mute the mic. Out of these 60 upakramas, the 11 are meant for the treatment of the Vrana Shofa, the initial stage, with an idea of preventing the inflammation or preventing the Vrana. And they also may have a utility in the next stage once they have they have reached to the stage of Vrana. Now we'll go one by one. The first of them is the Apadarpana. Apadarpana, the word meaning of Apadarpana is to reduce the metabolic load on the body, something called as a Langhana. Now, Sushruta has referred to a restriction on the diet in the Vrana in the later part as Ahara, as well as the Apadarpana. So, now it's not an issue of controversy, it's the same meaning, but the issue is in Apadarpana, it's not only the food which is to be considered. The Apadarpana is to consider all the physiological status of the body so that the process of Vrana Shofa is regulated, controlled. And hence, Apadarpana is considered as Adhyaha Upakramaha, Sarvashopanam Samanyaha Pradhanatamashya. Sarvashopanam Samanya in the sense it's not only for those conditions which can result in the Vrana, the same principle would be true for any other diseases of the body. Like in case of the Jwara, in the Jwara Chikitsa also, the first step is Langhana. Langhana and Apadarpana, they are the synonyms. And the whole idea is to minimize the possibility of progression of the course of the disease by reducing the metabolic load. Now, in the contemporary sense, that's very interesting, and this idea of dietary regulations in the management of any disease is a very unique contribution of Ayurveda, and really one of the strengths, the strength of Ayurvedic principles. Most of the times we practitioners neglect that. So that's one point which we have always have to be careful in any management of any disease as such. Diet has a very important role, which even the current biochemistry is aware of, but practically the utilization is not done. The dietary advice in all such conditions, in the initial stages of the inflammation, it could be Jwara, it could be Vrana Shofa, or it could be any other disease, is to reduce the metabolic load so that the body would have some energy to deal with the disease. And that's why the dietary advice is Laghumatraha, Laghushchaiva, Snigdaha, Ushnaha, Agnidipanaha. The quantity should be Laghu, diet quantity of the food you have to consume would be lagu, in the sense the quantity should not be more, and the guna should be, the karma of the food also should be lagu. Now, when I say the lagu guna, we can give you a biochemical commentary on that lagu guna. You know that every substance, when it is metabolized in the body, it results in the release of energy. That's the ATP. It's stored in the form of ATPs. Energy is released in the form of adenosine triphosphate by converting adenosine diphosphate to the adenosine diphosphate by an oxidation reaction. Now, when any glucose metabolism, glucose molecule is metabolized, it results in 36 ATPs, but at the same time, it utilizes 6 ATPs for the initiation of the metabolism. The same may not be true with a protein or a fat molecule. With a protein or fat molecule, the amount of the ATP released could be very high, but at the same time, the ATP is needed to start that process of the disintegration would be more. And hence, they are categorized as guru. Those substances which will be utilizing lesser ATPs to start the digestion process and end up in relatively lesser amount of the ATPs released, they are the lagu. So a substance can be identified as either lagu or guru by the metabolic activity by biochemical. Now the point is, this is the basic physiological aspect. Now everyone is now very aware of a new concept, rather I'm not saying a new concept, very popular concept of oxidative stress. These days, oxidative stress is supposed to be a cause for every disease, and now you have very popular form of the treatment called as antioxidants, and most of the Ayurvedic people are aware of these antioxidants and so on, so I'm not going into the detail of it. But the basic idea of that antioxidants and oxidative stress is when the body has to utilize more energy to produce more ATPs, that itself is the cause of oxidative stress. By reducing that mechanism, the possibility of oxidative stress in the body, every disease can be suppressed, or at least the body can fight with the disease in a better manner than otherwise. And that's the idea of the Langhana. So Langhana or Apadarpana as a main course of the basic principle of treatment of any disease has a very strong physiological background. Unfortunately, most of us are not utilizing it in the clinical practice. Usually what happens is, when a patient of wound goes to any usual practice by doctors, the advice would be like, you take any food. Rather, the idea would be giving more nourishing food or more quantity of food, like, but it's not the quantity of the food which is really useful, but instead it should be the moderate quantity which will be sufficient for the energy needs of the body, but it should not load on the energy requirement of the body. And this is a very fundamental principle of the wound management. It's not only the wound management, in disease management, every disease management according to Ayurvedic principles. And I always consider this as the most important unique feature of Ayurvedic practice, which makes the difference at the end as such. Anyway, I will not waste my time on that protocol itself. The next of the protocol which is mentioned is the lepa. Lepa, alepaha adhya upakrama. It's when it comes to the local management, the alepa is the adhya, the first. So it's not a controversy like whether apadarpana is the first or the lepa is the first. Lepa is about the first therapy of a local management, whereas apadarpana is a general management principle for almost every disease, sarva shopanam samanya, whereas alepa is for the shopa at the local level. And it's also considered as one of the important management. Now, lepa as such also is understood in a different manner in different contexts with the different names also. The lepa in the initial stages, in the early stage of a Vrana, that's by the time the inflammation has just started in, would be application of some Shita Dravyas or Shita Virya Dravyas, so that the inflammation could be prevented. Shopeshu Uchitamatreshu. So when in the initial stages of the Shopa, it's indicated, or it also could be used as a symptomatic relief. Pranayeshu Ugra Rudeshuja. As a symptomatic relief to reduce the pain, a lepa could be used. So practically, this basic idea of the lepa would be of lesser use in clinical conditions, because most of the times when a patient comes to you, the patient will be coming in an advanced state, and this basic labor would be of practically no use at that level. But the other form of the labor, which are mentioned in Sushruta in different contexts, they definitely have a utility. Now, Sushruta has described that lepa in more detail in the Sutrasthana, where some specific guidelines for the lepa are mentioned, and it's a very broad aspect of the lepa. So, in the initial stages of the Purana, the lepa approach is a Shita lepa, but the other aspects of lepa are mentioned in the other chapters also and in other contexts also. And those basic restrictions about the lepa are every lepa has to have a sneha content, a fatty content in it, and it should not be allowed to dry. And based upon the thickness of the lepa, they are categorized into three: pralepa, pradeha, alepa. And there, when the thickest lepa, it has become thick as such, and it's considered as the pradeha as such, and pralepa is a thin lepa as such, and pradeha could be also applied as a warm lepa. Now, other varieties of the lepa could be, depending upon the vrana conditions, it could be shodhanaha, ropanaha. Shodhana or ropana lepa also could be used, but the basic idea is the protocol would be the same. The basic differences will be the contents of the drug which you use. For shodhana, you will be using Tikshna Aushadhis. The ropana, kashaya rasa, tikta rasa Vishadhis are used, or shofa vedanapahascha. The same, the lepa applied on a open wound also is called as kalka. Kalka, I think every Ayurvedic student knows about it. A moist this brown mixture of any of the plant product. It's also called as Nirugdha lepa. When it is used on a open wound, same is named as a kalka. So though all of them are the variety of the lepas, they have some specific names depending upon their context. One more of the variety of the lepa is Upanaha. Upanaha is a separate protocol. It's a separate protocol among the 60 protocols mentioned by Sushruta. But this is a very unique form of lepa, where it is a warm lepa, it's something called as a poultice, and it's applied thick over the body and applied over the area. And the whole idea is to ensure whether the inflammation is reversible or not. It is just trying like whether the inflammation is reversible or not. Avidagdaha shamamyati, vidagdaha pakametsja. If the inflammation can be reversed, or if the inflammation cannot be reversed, the next protocol according to Ayurveda would be to ensure that it separates, a controlled separation. The pus is formed, I think something which we referred to in the last session also. From Ayurvedic point of view, separation or the pus formation is not a complication. It's one of the sequelae of the disease or one of the termination of the disease. Whereas now we consider in the current system, it's considered as a complication, and that pus formation is prevented. Anyway, I am not going to that controversy issue, but primarily Ayurvedic point of view, that Upanaha is that therapeutic trial to see whether the approach of a controlled separation is possible or not, is needed or not. If a warm lepa is applied, then either it can reverse the whole process of the shopa, or it can enhance the process of the shopa, so that you can try with these measures. So these varieties of the lepa also are to be considered when we consider about the lepa as such. Then the next of the protocol is the parisheka. Parisheka is irrigation of the wound. Of course, it's a well-known phenomenon where whenever you have open wound, the first of the protocol everywhere now practice would be to ensure that the wound is kept clean. So you will have to wash with some sterile or maybe disinfectant substances which are commonly used. Sushruta has suggested like you use any of the kashayas and shita kashayas mainly to ensure that the wound is kept clean. So it's a simple irrigation. To do the irrigation now, you may use any techniques. Commonest, simplest could be a simple tap water, or you may use sophisticated syringes, so that the main issue is about keeping the wound clean and ensuring that you have a hygienic surface for the cleaning asset. Now, Parisheka also, using a liquid to clean the wound or the douche also is with the different meanings or different spectrum of activity according to Sushruta. Later in the among the same protocols, Rana Upakrama, you will come across the Kashayas. Kashaya, either it could be Shodhana Kashaya or Ropana Kashaya. Where again it's the same, the douching with some liquids, but there, because the contents of the drug are different, your target will be different, but basically the protocol is the same. So wound irrigation in the beginning is what we call as the Parisheka, where either you may use a simple water or you may use some sophisticated these disinfected solutions or any of the kashayas. Preferably, it should be a clean water so that the contamination is removed. The other varieties of the Parisheka and the Kashaya we will refer to when we go into the next aspect. Next up, the protocol mentioned by Sushruta is Abhyanga. Now, Abhyanga is not really in a wound management, but it's in the management of a swelling. When a patient has an inflammatory swelling, application of any local substances over the surface of the body, and then maybe a mechanical rubbing is could be considered as a Abhyanga. Now, Abhyanga also is used with the taila or any of the snigdha padartha, oily substances over the body, and it should be used according to the dosha lakshanas. Specific drugs could be used, and the main target is either it can help in reducing the dosha prakopa or it may make the area more vascular and make it softer. Practically, again, in the clinical practice, rarely you get an opportunity to use an Abhyanga in a patient because most of the times, as I said earlier, the patients come to you at the advanced stages. If a patient comes to you at an early stage of the inflammation, like a trauma, and then immediately after the trauma, definitely Abhyanga could be useful practically. Similarly, Swedana. Swedana also is a similar process where you apply some warm fermentations over the area, and this would be helping in reducing the possibility of the progress of the inflammation, as well as it also acts a counter-irritant mechanism to relieve the pain. A hot fermentation now is considered as a pain reliever by counter-irritant mechanism. But there are two important aspects. Now, in the present day situation, you may have an option of a cold poultice or cold application or warm application. Naturally, the question comes in when you use a cold, like an ice pack, which is commonly used now, or a hot poultice to be used. A ice pack or a cold shita dravya is to be used only in those patients who have come to immediately after the injury, and the idea would be to minimize the possibility of the swelling. The leakage of the blood at the site of injury, the capillary leakage, could be reduced by applying the cold substances. But later, once the patient has an inflammation established, application of the cold or ice pack doesn't help in any way. Rather, it should be the warmth. But warmth also is not very suitable idea in the present day situation with all that present idea of pathology in an inflammatory swelling, because the warmth can break down the barriers which are already formed, and it also can increase the vascularity. Instead, warmth could be useful as a pain reliever if there is a colicky pain. In case of intra-abdominal pathology, a warmth can help in relieving the pain by a colicky pain could be reduced. But in other inflammatory conditions, of course, it's well known that apply of a warm fermentation, application of a warm fermentation can make the patient feel better. But this feeling better is only by a counter-irritant mechanism. Whether it really helps in prevention of the pathology or not is a questionable issue. But I agree with that part. Like you should use this fermentation very judiciously. A fermentation used in every condition, every wound can be harmful also. We'll end at that level. Now, another similarly controversial issue is Vimardana. Vimardana is a rubbing the area rigorously. It's one step ahead of the Abhyanga. In the Abhyanga, you will be using some oily substances and rub over the area. Whereas in Vimardana or Vimlapana, it's using some harder substances like a bamboo stick or maybe a stone piece, etc., and rub the area. Now, rubbing that area also is to increase the vascularity. Sushmita has suggested in those conditions where the inflammation has become somewhat slower and hence the area is indurated, Sthirana, Rujata, Mandaruja, that's where the comparatively the pain is lesser and the swelling is harder. In such conditions, Vimlapana is suggested with a rubbing of the area, either it could be with your thumb, Talena Angustakenava, or Venunadya with a bamboo stick, or maybe with a piece of the stone as such. Now, this is again a controversial issue. We know that I think we have discussed about the whole course of inflammation in the previous session. In the initial stage of the inflammation, when the fibroblasts arrive and surround the area, that's the stage where the signs of inflammation would be comparatively lesser and the swelling becomes harder. And in that condition, rubbing the area with rigorous rubbing of the area would definitely break down those barriers and it increases the risk of spreading of the inflammation. So, Vimlapana, I don't suggest it to use in every condition as such, but it can be useful in those conditions where the whole area has become now somewhat, the inflammation has become sluggish and the inflammation process has been completely almost off as such. This kind of a situation is seen practically in case of antibiomas. Now, antibiomas are when the patients are administered antibiotics without really draining the product of pus, and then the whole area of inflammation becomes harder. This is a very unique condition which we often see. Most of the times, such patients come to us Ayurvedic practitioners after having a antibiotic treatment and anti-inflammatory treatment elsewhere, and the swelling remains as such, pain reduces, and the patient would have some discomfort. The acute pain symptoms of inflammation are reduced. In such conditions, definitely one of the aspects of the management which will be practically useful would be this mechanical rubbing. Rubbing over the area can again help with you to make out exactly the intensity of the inflammation and next plan of management. Of course, a Vimlapana or rubbing is not the ultimate treatment. The ultimate treatment should be the pus should be drained. But before you think about the drainage, whether the drainage is really needed or not, can be made out by rubbing the area. So it should be now limited, that Vimlapana should be limited to such situations like antibiomas, may not be in all conditions. And Sushruta also has suggested a similar issue, though he has not mentioned about the antibiomas with the name. Upanaha, I think we have already mentioned about Upanaha, when there is a inflammation which cannot be really, it cannot subside, it cannot be reversed. To confirm whether it can be reversed or not, Sushruta has suggested Upanaha. It's a warm vapor applied over the area, and if the inflammation doesn't subside, it results in a hastening of the inflammation. Now the next very strength of Ayurvedic point of view is the Pachana, a controlled suppuration. If a patient comes to you with a sign of inflammation, the usual protocol which is followed in the contemporary system is an anti-inflammatory drug. Ayurveda doesn't believe in anti-inflammatory drug. Rather, it's to have a regulated inflammation and make use of that inflammatory process for the benefit. And that Pachana is such a unique step suggested by Sushruta, where we do not find anything parallel in the contemporary system. And the idea is to hasten the suppuration so that the pus is formed rapidly, and that course in stage of painful state during the course of pain, this pus formation, there's a Pachamana avastha, would be more painful. The idea is to reduce that painful situation. The Pachamana avastha is reduced, and once the pus is formed, it's easy to drain it out. So you can end the whole course of the disease in a shorter period, and that's the idea of Pachana. And we should be bold enough, Ayurvedic people should be bold enough to say that this is our highlight, and we need not feel apologetic to say that the suppuration is a sequel and not a complication, because the popular belief now is to consider the suppuration or pus formation as a complication, which we have to boldly defend with. Now, to achieve Pachana, Sushruta has suggested application of a thick lepas with some oily and sour substances like Dadi, Tatru, Sura, Shukta, Dhanyam, Dehi, Yojitani, or Utkarika, or has to be applied. Of course, any of the other lepas also could be used. One of the commonly used lepa which we use is Dashanga lepa. Dashanga lepa in applied in warm would be acting as pathana. When it is applied in cold water, it could be used as the initial lepa which can prevent the inflammation. So easier a choice as. Then another of the next of the options suggested by Sushruta is the Rakta Moksha. Now, Rakta Moksha again, the techniques could be of different varieties. The popularly used technique is a Jaloka in the present day situation. I think Jaloka now is very popular. There are lots of Ayurvedic practitioners who use that Jaloka regularly, and maybe it has become one of the identity of Ayurvedic practitioners. But primarily, there is a very specific indication for the Jaloka in case of the Vranashopa, and the target would be either Vedana Upashamarthaya to reduce the intensity of the pain, or Akashamayacha to prevent the pus formation. And it is indicated in Achirotpatite Shope. In recent origin Shopa only the Rakta Mokshana is indicated. Now, it's one of the issues. So, if it is an inflammatory swelling, it should be only in the recent conditions. It should be used, and where there is a hypervascularity. Dhyame, sarakte, sashope, kathine, shope. Like where you have a shopa which is kathina, firm, and dhyama, bluish in color or reddish in color. These are the indications for the Rakta Mokshana in the Vrana Shopa Avastha. But once the Vrana has occurred, and if the Vrana has become more infected and has become somewhat fibrous, less vascular, doesn't show the sign of healing. In that condition, Samrabdhe Vishame Chapi, if the wound has become a Samrabdha Vishama Vrana, Samrabdha Vishama Vrana is where the course of the Vrana is not following the usual course, and the surface shows a hypervascularity signs, and the granulation tissue is not proper. In such conditions, too, Rakta Mokshana could be indicated. Of course, another is a Shabisha Vrana, where a poisonous contamination, again a controversial issue in a poisonous contamination, whether Rakta Mokshana is needed or not, or when to use. I will not go into the detail of that because it will take more time. But that's another basic issue. In general, in case of poisonous conditions, with all that regular limitations of the time limit and the type of the poison, Rakta Mokshana has a utility as such. These are the specific indications of the Rakta Mokshana. If the Rakta Mokshana is practiced with these specific precautions, it is definitely one of the significant tool which we have from Ayurvedic practice point of view. Then the next part of the management would be from the systemic point of view, the Shodhana. And for the Shodhana, naturally, you have to have a Snehapana in the beginning. And this is for the preparation for the Shodhana, like Vamana or the Virechana. It's a usual protocol. Everyone knows about it. As we practice the Shodhana, the Snehapana should be one of the Purva Karma. And in case of Vrana, Sushruta says like the Shodhana is indicated in Ruksha, Krisha, Vrana Shoshi, who is malnourished, and there is a complication of the wound. Snehapana could be used in the beginning, followed by the Shodhana as such. The Shodhana is indicated in every other aspect of the disease. It's not only the Vrana, but in case of the Vrana, it's with an idea of preventing the inflammation as well as in any other stage of the Vrana where you have the complication. Now, Vamana is indicated in case of Utsanna Mamsa Shopete Kapha Justetu Visheshataha, Sanklishta Shama Rudhire, when the wound shows a hypergranulation features and the signs of Kapha Justi, that's where comparatively the pain is lesser and there is a fibrous tissue formation, or if it is a Sanklishta Vrana, where the wound tends to recur repeatedly, in that condition, Vamana is indicated. In general, a Kapha Prakopa Lakshanas, Vamana is indicated. Similarly, with Virechana. Virechana also could be used to prevent the inflammation in the beginning, or in case of the Vrana, which continues to be there for a long time, a chronic non-healing ulcer, where you have Vata Pitta Lakshanas and Dirgha Kalanabandhi. So, those which are there for a long duration. So, Vamana, Virechana, Snehana, these are a part of the package treatment which can be used in every patient of Vrana, either with an idea of preventing the Vrana from progressing to the next stage, or it could be a specific curative procedure. And of course, one of the major highlights of Ayurvedic management, I will not go into much of the detail of that part as well. Now, the next approach part would be from the surgical point of view. The surgical interventions in a case of Vrana could be of different varieties. Of course, all the Ashtabhija Shastra Karmas are indicated in case of a Purana Chikitsa also. And the Chedana is the first. Chedana is the debridement or excision. Now, excision, the indications are very specific. Apakeshu tu rogeshu, kathineshu, stireshu cha, snaikothadishu tatha, chedanam praptamuchyate. In those conditions where the pathology is irreversible, as in case of kotha, the death of the tissue, which is irreversible, which cannot be reverted, or as in case of a possibility of neoplastic changes, Apaki Roga, a disease which doesn't end up in suppuration, non-inflammatory swelling, which doesn't suppurate, is obviously either a neoplastic or maybe a congenital swelling, or a swelling which presents with the kathina sthira, hard and immovable swelling. Very obviously sign of a tumor pathology. These conditions, Chedana is indicated, and exactly the same is true even now. A wound needs to be, removed, or the tissues to be removed surgically, either by a surgical debridement, as we do in the practice, like either it could be surgical removal, and you give an opportunity for the next normal tissue to heal, or now you have one more option. Instead of dealing with that instruments, you may use some chemicals. Autolytic chemicals are available in the market now. Many of them are there. I think I will not go into detail of that. The application of those drugs over the area can help in the debridement of the wound. The debridement also could be done by another means, the lekhana. We'll come to that lekhana later. Now, another surgical procedure which is suggested by Sushruta is the bhedana. Bhedana is the drainage, and that drainage is done once the pus is formed. Naturally, once the pus is formed, by natural means, the pus will always try to find an outlet by its own efforts, and it will try to move towards a path of least resistance. If you facilitate the pus to be drained out by making an incision opening to the area, the whole course of the disease and the load on the body could be reduced. So it's the draining of a pus is helping the body to drain out the pus. So even if you do not do that, it will drain. But when it occurs by the natural process, the time taken could be more, the tissue involved could be more, the end result of the opening may not be comfortable. Whereas you can selectively select an area where the drainage could be very efficient, and you can minimize the damage to tissue. And hence, Sushruta has indicated a drainage in those conditions where there is a definite evidence of the pus, and the definite evidence of the pus is the conditions where you can elicit the fluctuation. And gatimatsuja rogeshu, when there is a fluctuation is elicited, are very sure that there is a pus inside, but there is no opening. Antapuyeshu avatreshu cha. Tathaiva utsanga. Utsanga again we have discussed the other day in the previous session. When there is an extension of the cavity from one segment to the other across a physiological barrier, in that condition too, the incision is needed. Now, it may be an incision with a surgical instrument, or you can facilitate the help, this drainage by applying some irritant substances and mechanically squeezing substances over the area, and that's dharana. Dharana, according to Sushruta, is facilitating the drainage without a surgical instrument. And this is again a unique feature. Popularly, now also it's used as marmani repa, where you apply some sticky substance and allow it to dry. It helps in pidana as well as dharana. When it's applied over the area and allowed to dry, usually it contains some sticky substance like egg yolk or kanji, amla kanji, and you apply it over the area. This will facilitate the pus to drain out through a selected area, and it also helps in squeezing. And this is another very unique idea of Ayurvedic approach, where the surgical instrument can be avoided, like those persons who are afraid of the surgery, Virunam Yoshitanam, Bala Vruddha Asahakshina, where the person is not fit for surgery, you can have some conservative approach, and it is one of the options, other option than the surgical drainage. Now, lekhana is a option which is just like debridement. The only difference between the chedana and the lekhana is in the chedana, you will be excising the tissue, a larger amount of the tissue. Lekhana, you will be curating the tissue, smaller layer of the tissue. So from the current technology point of view, current terminology point of view, both of them could be considered as a debridement, either a excision and debridement or curating and debridement. The aim would be the same. Indications also are similar. The only issue is the amount of the tissue you have to remove would be lesser. So Kachina, that firmness, Stula Vrtostan, Viramanan Punapuna. A wound tends to recur repeatedly with a hard surface, which is usually a sign of a neoplastic change, possibly a neoplastic change. Now you do say that a biopsy is to be done. Now you take, Sushita has suggested the option like taking a small tissue and then maybe microscopy examination is not suggested by Sushita, but you decide like whether the condition can be managed or not. And once you have removed that extra tissue, it's also an idea of giving an opportunity to the tissue to heal again. So all that debris tissue could be removed. So surgical removal or debridement is the lecture. Yashana is another of the options suggested by Sushita, and it's to locate the track. The word Yashana means to search. And in those conditions where there is a track which is not directly visible, it needs to be probed, confirmed. And Sushita has used that Yashana, the Yashani Shastra, in case of Nadi Vrana, Shalegarbha, Unmargi, Utsangi Vranas, where you have a possibility of a track left over. Of course, in the present day situation also, probing is one of the options, but because probing is an intervening procedure and can be somewhat painful, not so easily acceptable, now you have different options like a fistulography or a MRI scan or an ultrasonography scan or so on, which will serve the same purpose so that you know exactly the limit of the extent of the disease and you can plan the management. And it's a sort of diagnostic approach than really a curative approach. Yashana is somewhat a diagnostic approach. And then the next is Aharana. So once you have located any object in the irritant object in the Purana, it needs to be removed. And it's simple extraction of any of the substances which are identifiable. You have to have a suspicion of the possible substance in the tissue wound by the clinical feature. Sushil says, Samvrita Asamvritasyeshu Uraneshu Matiman Bishakar. In the wounds where there is a possibility of a suspicion of a foreign body or any irritant substance, I don't say only a foreign body, you have to search for it with the Yashana, and then after the Yashana, you have to remove it and ensure that no irritant substance is left over. It's obviously the same in any case of a wound. If there is a source of inflammation, that needs to be removed. Vedhana is another unique procedure where again the purpose is draining of the fluid from the contents. The difference between Vedana and the Vedana is in the Vedana you make a wide opening and then drain the fluid, whereas Vedana is making use of a pointed instrument like a needle and then drain the fluid. So it depends upon the type of the fluid formation, type of the pathology, and so on. If the area to be drained is a very sensitive area like the abdomen, instead of making an incision, we may use a needle to aspirate. The paracentesis is the option, which may have a diagnostic value as well as a curative value. Wherever there is a possibility, a wider incision and drainage is always a better choice in an infective pathology, like a Vrana or the Paka acid when the pus is formed. The other way, when it is not an inflammatory pathology and you are not sure about prevention of the further formation of the fluid, a paracentesis could be used, and paracentesis also may have a diagnostic utility. Then, of course, one more of the protocol mentioned is the Sivana, the suturing. I think we have referred to that suturing in the previous session also in case of a Sadhyavarana in the clean wounds acid. In those conditions where there is no sign of inflammation, and in case of Sadhyavarana, Sivana or suturing is indicated. Either it could be in the Sadhyavarana or suturing also could be done in case of infected wound in the second stage after the wound has shown the sign of a better granulation tissue. A secondary suturing also is done and it is almost quite beneficial. So you may prefer either a primary suturing or a secondary suturing depending upon the stage of the wound. I will not go into much of the detail about that. Then the next is about the Pidana. Pidana we have referred to in a context as such when we discussed about the Dharana. Now it's a part of the same. In those conditions where the pus is hidden inside, either it could be removed, extracted out by a mechanical compression with your hand, or it could be by any of the layers. It's simply a squeezing of the pus and ensuring that no pus is left over in the cavity. Shonika this also we have referred to when in the context of Sadhyavarana in the previous session. When there is a bleeding from a wound, then it has to be stopped, and you have the different options. Either it could be Sandhana, Skandana, Pachana, Dahana, by which we ensure that the hemostasis is established. Hemostasis is an essential part of the wound management, whether it is a fresh wound or even in a chronic wound. This is about the different options. Then comes to the Sheka. Now, this part also we have referred to as the Sheka. Either it could be in case of Vrana to reduce the pain, as a to reduce the intensity of the pain, either after the lepa or without the lepa, it could be useful. And I think we have referred to that issue, like when you have to use a cold poultice or a hot poultice, a Shitala Dravya or the Ushna Dravya could be selected depending upon the condition of the patient. If the patient has more signs of inflammation, the temperature is raised, so should suggest that it should be the Shitalepa, cold lepa has to be used. So Dahapaka Jvarvata, Rananam Pittakopada, when there is a evidence of the inflammation severe, you have to use a Shitalepa, which is suggested by Sushruta. Whereas a Ushna Seka would be the Svedana otherwise, local Svedana. Now, this Svedana and the Svedana which you have discussed in the beginning earlier should be considered as different issues. The Svedana which you have considered in the beginning is about a part of the Puro Karma for the Shodhana, whereas this Svedana which we are discussing in this context would be the local application of the warmth asset. So Shita Lepa is the Seka, Shita Seka. Svedana is the warm poultice which is applied where there is a more of pain and maybe a hardness. I think we have referred to that issue somewhat in detail earlier. Then comes the issue of Kashaya. Kashaya, I think we have referred to when discussed about the Parisheka. The Shodhana Kashaya and the Ropana Kashaya are mentioned. Shodhana Kashaya is when you have lot of suppurative tissue and scrub tissue in the wound. Durgandhanam, Pledavatam, Pichilanam, Sheshataha. That's the Shodhana Kashaya. The difference would be the drugs which we use for the Shodhana. Now, in our clinical setup, we prefer, instead of making this issue more elaborate, we prefer to have a Kashaya which would have both Shodhana as well as Ropana property. And I have found out Triphalakvata as one of the best options, which will have both Shodhana as well as Ropana property and comparatively easy to prepare and simple. Though you have hundreds and hundreds of Kashaya yogas mentioned in the yoga, and even that folklore experiences also, lots of references are there, lots of descriptions of using different varieties of the Kashayas are known. In my experience, I have found Triphalakvata as a very simple, easy to use, and we have used it in large number of patients with the benefits, both with an idea of Shodhana as well as a Ropana. Now, another of the, I think I'll give some more details about that Triphalakvata and its results later when we discuss about the Ropana Kashaya also. Now, the other option is a Varti. So when you use a Kashaya, you will be using that substance over the wound area temporarily for a short duration, and it's washed out. Instead of that, if you keep that drug in contact with the wound for a longer duration, either with a cotton or a gauze or without that, it could be considered as a Varti, which we consider as suppository or big assets. The only difference is you will be keeping that drug in contact with the wound for a longer duration, and the medicinal effects also could be varied, and it keeps the opening. It helps in a partial drainage. When you use a suppository or a drainage, it helps in the drainage and ensure that the opening doesn't get closed. So that kind of an approach is now practiced in many sinuses where the openings are narrow, and a single step exploration may not be possible. You can buy time with using a pack, usually a gauze pack, or maybe at times it could be medicated substances also are used as Sushruta indicates the same, exactly the same. Pujimamsa pratichannan mahadoshamscha shodhayet kalki kritehi. So with a medicine drug, it could be used as. Then for the shodhana, you may use ghrita or the taila depending upon the dosha lakshanas. If there is more of inflammation, a shodhana ghrita is indicated. Usually we use jatyadi ghrita quite frequently. Of course, lots of ghrita yogas mentioned in the text. Jatyadi ghrita is most often used. Shodhana taila is a taila which is used when you have more of a vata lakshanas, where asnigdha vrana, the wound doesn't show much of a discharge, and kalpasrava, where you have more of vata lakshanas. If it is more pitta lakshana, it could be used as a grita. If it has more of vata lakshana, it could be taila. What we use is jatyadi taila or jatyadi grita, depending upon the condition. So single yoga would be useful. It has a rather broad spectrum utility. When I say this, I don't mean to say that the other yogas mentioned or other yogas used are not of any use, but I'm just referring to our clinical experience with these kind of yogas quite frequently, and of course, it's a practice very popularly in majority of the situation. Then the Rasakriya is a very specific procedure where you will that whole preparation of the Rasakriya is mentioned in the Bhaishya Nirmana Kriya, where you will have a thick paste-like substance prepared out of a kashaya. And Sushruta has indicated it in those conditions where Taila has failed to produce the results. Of course, we have tried it in a few conditions also. I'll just refer to those issues maybe later. Then the Shodhana Churna, a dry powder, could also be used. A dry powder or dusting over the area of the wound is suggested when there is more of discharge and you have more of foul smelling conditions. Medodustan, Agambhiran, Durgandan, Churna Shodhanena, Upachareta. Now, even now, you have that option of using a dusting. The major advantage of the dusting is when you use the dry powder, the discharges can be reduced to a certain extent. But practically, they are not as convenient as that of a liquid to be used as such. So, not a very popular option in the present day situation, but in certain specific conditions, definitely yes, it can be used as such. Now, the Ropana Kashaya, I think we just refer to that issue. In those conditions where the wound has shown sign of Shuddha Vrana, the Ropana has to be done. That Ropana is a unique feature of Ayurveda, that the contemporary system doesn't have such an approach of stimulating the healing. And for the Ropana Kashaya, we prefer the Triphala Kvata both as well as a Shodhana and the Ropana. So this again the same. Some of the examples of that Triphala Kvata used wounds before and after treatment, and you can see the changes in a short duration with that Triphala Kvata. Triphala Kvata, we use it very regularly in large number of patients. I am just showing you some of those photographs of the patients treated with Triphala Kvata, like day 1, day 10, and then what you have seen after a month or so in very chronic, severe wounds. Burn wound also, Triphala Kvata used after a week, the change, it has changed. Some more of those photographs. I think we have a lot of them, but I'll just refer to that issue. Of course, there was a study to confirm whether the Triphala Kvata would have an antibacterial effect or not. It's not. So we have to be very clear, like when we use Ayurvedic Kashaya, it's not an antibacterial drug. Rather, the bacterial growth is promoted with the Triphala Kvata. When we have done the culture tests, it has shown that the bacteria will grow. So naturally, the question comes in from the contemporary science point of view, how it helps. I would say it's only the Shodhana or Ropana. I would not use any other technical terms. Okay, it could be like either it may be biofilm formation could be prevented or the granulation tissue could be protected. So Triphala when it is used, it will produce a coagulated layer over the granulation tissue and protects it, and it also promotes the growth factor. We have done in our center a large number of studies, and many PG theses also were submitted with Triphala Kvata in different aspects of the Vrana. Just a few of those references of those PG theses submitted by our students in SDM Madrid Hospital. Ropanavarti is another of the option which could be used in case of the wound treatment, and this is again the same as that of the other Varti. The difference is about the drug used. Ropanavarti would have more of Tikta Rasa Dravyas, Kashaya Rasa Dravyas, whereas Shodhanavarti would have Ushnabirya Dravyas, Katu or Lavana Rasa or Amla Rasa Dravyas. Similarly, Ropana Kalka, where again, instead of using the Varti, you use a paste of the drug to use treat the wound, where once you have the signs of the suppuration or the slough tissue is removed, reduced, then a Ropana Kalka could be used. Ropana Ghrita is again the same. We'll just skip these issues to a certain extent. So the difference will be when you have more of Pitta Lakshanas and it has shown the sign of Shuddha Vrana, then the Ropana Ghrita has to be used. From our practical point of view, we use Jatyadikrita for both Ropana as well as Shodhana. Similarly, Jatyadikrita for both Shodhana Taila and Ropana Taila, though different yogas are mentioned, the advantage of Jatyadi Taila is it has both the varieties of Shodhana as well as Ropana Dravyas as its content, and hence the whole approach to the management in the practical clinical field would be simpler if you have a lesser number of drugs in stock instead of using hundreds of yogas. Of course, there are hundreds of yogas mentioned in the different texts as such. As we have referred to the Rasakriya in the Shodhana, similarly with the Lopana also you have the Rasakriya indicated when a bandage cannot be applied due to other reasons. Now, or Ropana Churna, the dusting also used in Ayurvedic practice according to the text would be different from the Shuddha Avastha and the Dushya Avastha. Practically, the dusting is not a very popular treatment unless there is a huge amount of the discharge. Now, Dhupana is mentioned in Rakshogna Vidhi as well as in case of the Vrana Chikitsa, which is from the both the point of view to reduce the possibility of inflammation, or it also can help in reducing the intensity of the pain and discharges. Practically, we rarely use this in the practical clinical situation. Utsadhana is another of the option where it's a sort of dusting only, but it's applied over the surface with some oily substances like Grita or Taila, is sort of lepa, which is supposed to help in promoting the wound healing. And it's a nourishing substance. It is sort of the lepa or maybe the dusting. The drugs used are mainly the Brahmana Dravyas used as such. Practically, you have very few opportunities to use that. Similarly, there is another option mentioned where if there is a hypertrophied tissues, a hypergranular wound conditions, you may use similar layers or dusts over the area to ensure that the hypergranulation tissue is reduced. That's avasadhana. Utsadhana and avasadhana are the two aspects of controlling the healing process or controlling the granulation tissue. If the granulation tissue is lesser, you use utsadhana so that the surface becomes flatter and depressed, the tissue loss is covered up rapidly. Avasadhana is when there is a hyper growth or increased growth, you can reduce that hyper growth to a normal extent. These are the two options mentioned in Sushruta, and they are very practical also. But most of the times, if you do a regular wound cleaning, handling of the wound, dressing regularly, the chances of such a complication is lesser. Now, another suggestion by Sushruta is Mrudukarana. If the wound has become harder due to fibrosis, the wound doesn't heal properly. In that condition, Mrudukarana is mentioned by Sushruta, and Raktamokshana is one of the options of the Mrudukarana. I think that point we have referred to when we discussed about the Raktamokshana in the beginning. So, in a Sankrishta Dhyama Vrana, you need a Mrudukarana as such. A Dharunekarana is another of the unique idea of Sushruta, where the wound has become very soft, granulation tissue is not healthy. Application of the specific drug like Dhava, Priyam, Rohini, etc. is supposed to use make that granulation tissue firmer. Of course, practically having such a opportunity is a lesser opportunity because most of the times you can manage the wound better if you clean the wound regularly. Now, another very popular option which is used regularly is the Ksharakar. Ksharakharma is a option when there is a hypergranulation tissue. So it's a sort of avasadhana, but when the avasadhana is not used, Kshara Karma can be used. Now, as we use Kshara Karma regularly, that Avasadhana, Utsadhana protocols are not really popularly followed as such. Now, Kshara Karma is indicated in case of Utsanam Mrudu Mamsa Kathina Kandu Yukta Vrana. That's a hypergranulation tissue conditions. Or then the other Shodhana Upayas like Shodhana Kashayas do not help in resolution, then Kshara Karma is indicated. Of course, the Kshara, I think details of the Kshara can be, we will be knowing about that. Now, some of the examples of the Kshara used in our setup, the wound images before treatment and after treatment. Kshara is applied as a single sitting when there is more of slough and then hypergranulation tissue. Only for a single sitting, the Kshara is applied, and once the Kshara is applied, you will see the signs of necrosis. The tissue has become necrosed, and all that fibrous tissue becomes necrosed. Then, next due course of time, it has to be cleaned with the usual Kashaya, Triphala Kashaya, and you will see the new granulation tissue coming up, healthy new granulation tissue coming up, and the whole wound will be healed within a short period. Some of the examples, hypergranulation tissue before the Kshara applied. Once the Kshara has been applied, you have that necrosis changes seen. Following it, the wound shows a sign of healing. The wound constriction becoming very evident. Some of the examples: 4 days after Kshara Sutra, 7 days after Kshara application, or 7 days after Kshara application. So you have plenty of experiences with the Kshara application. Naturally, there was some experiment also done, like how the Kshara helps. Very unique, important issue. Kshara applied over the animals, wound over the animals, albino rats, and then the tissue was studied, and a similar wound was formed with some other chemicals over there, acidic substance, and the wound healing was studied. Very important is in the initial first stage of histopathological study, there is not much of a difference between a chemical burnt wound and a Kshara burnt wound. There is a necrosis of the tissue. The difference will be after a week, during the phase of healing, a Kshara applied wound shows the signs of the skin appendages like hair follicles being grown. This is a very unique feature, and that neovascularization, new vessels formed at the area of the Kshara burnt wound, and hair follicles which are grown is a unique feature which no pathologist can explain. So it's a very unique feature, a special highlight of this Kshara utility, which current pathology is not able to explain, like how a skin appendages can grow in a wound where there is a secondary healing. So it's a mystery, but this is the uniqueness of what's the Kshara as such. So when we say Ksharana, to define the Ksharana, you have to use that very specific, very controlled destruction of the tissue and giving a best opportunity for the wound to heal with all the normal phenomena. Now, with the Kshara also, we have submitted a huge number of dissertations as a part of the protocol, and these studies were done. Now, another of the options suggested is the Agni Karma. Agni Karma, I think you know the cautery, and now these days also the Agni Karma has become quite popular in many conditions. Agni Karma is done with specific idea, either to close an aperture wound which is quite big, as in case of Mutrasravi Vrana, or it could be to, like in a inguinal hernia, the Andravruddhi, to treat that, or very specifically, Sushruta has suggested in case of the postoperative period of Ashmari, where the wound becomes patent, remains patent, and allows the discharge to continue. In that condition, Agni Karma is done with an idea of closing the wound, or Agni Karma also could be done as an option for the Chedan to remove the tissues. So, excision with the cautery is well known, but a closure of a wound with the cautery is a unique idea of Sushruta. So practically, now in the present day situation, we may not use the Agni Karma protocol in such a wound because we have some more easier options otherwise. But cautery used to remove the tissue as an option of the Chedana is of course very popularly used as such. Now, other unique idea of Sushruta would be the Krishna Karma. That's if there is a discoloration, to prevent that discoloration in the wound scar. If the wound has become, the scar has become pale and no pigmentation is seen, so you may apply the drug like Bhallataka over the area, Bhallataka with the process with the Kshira and Gomutra, and it is supposed to help in reducing the possibility of a hypopigmented scar. The pigmentation can be regulated. Of course, practically, how far it would be useful is still somewhat questionable. But anyway, this is one of the options. Similarly, you have the other way, the Pandakarma, if there is a hyperpigmentation, the pigmentation could be minimized. These are the two unique area of Ayurvedic approach where you will ensure that the healed result of a wound healing is perfect, where that hyper both as well as hypopigmentation complications can be prevented. And another of the option is the Roma Sanjana. So at the scar area, hair follicles may not grow as per the current pathology, but Sushruta says, like, if you apply Hastisanthamasi over the scar, the hairs will grow. Of course, we have tried it in a few of the wounds, but we couldn't really appreciate the significant changes. It's not in the regular practice. Hastisanthamasi was tried in a few of the wound conditions. Maybe the indications which we have used are timing of our use may not be proper. So I don't say that it really has, I have seen that really practically working, but theoretically that's the issue. Similarly, Roma Paharana. So if there is an excess of the hair growth, it needs to be removed, and it could be removed mechanically with a blade or maybe a scissors or so on. Shura Kartarisandamshahi. Mechanical removal is suggested to remove the wound. Maybe that Roma Paharana could be as a preceding the wound management or maybe after the wound management. Now, another of the option is the Basti, very useful one. Basti, Vatadushtah Pranayastu Rukshasya Vedanaha, Adhakaye Visheshana. If there is a Vatadushtha Prana, obviously ischemic wound, and these days the incidence of the ischemic wounds are quite common, and in virtually where contemporary system has failed to produce the result, and the patients end up in Ayurvedic treatment as such. Now, very commonly used Basti in our setup is Manjastharik Shara Basti. Manjastharik Shara Basti is regularly used in case of ischemic ulcers, and we have a reputation of saving the limbs of large number of patients. I'll show you some of those examples of a gangrene, virtually a gangrenous wound which was formed, and a spontaneous amputation occurring and the wound healing after a course of Basti, and of course the local management of the wound with the Kashayas and the Tailas. Some of the other examples, a necrotizing amputated stump of a wound, which again after has shown a significant change after the Basti. Some more examples, a 2-year-old wound which has not shown any response for 2 years, a hypovascular wound, a ischemic varicose ulcer with lots of fibrosis. After the Basti, the tissue has started now retracting and wound size has reduced significantly. These are some of the examples. Similarly, a few more wound conditions like a Basti initially, after a month or maybe after a year, where the whole ischemic necrosed area has become healed. These again some of the treated cases. Now, whether Basti is producing Vata Shodhana or whether it improves a microcirculation or enhances the capacity of the tissues to adapt, these are all the questions which we can say. At the same time, I feel like reporting one of the very interesting patient which we have treated in 2017. This patient had a history of a road accident and then a complex fracture at the ankle area. Patient had gone to some modern hospital where initially the patient had undergone an amputation at the ankle level, but the stump gave away and there was a revised amputation, below knee amputation then, and that below knee amputation also didn't show a sign of relief. And then when the investigations were done, the investigation showed that the patient had a thrombosis of the femoral artery, and the patient was advised a third amputation above knee. At that time, patient's party, they become nervous. Patient was quite toxic, and they preferred to shift from that contemporary hospital to Ayurvedic hospital. And when the patient came to us, the wound was that the whole stump had dehisced. The stump had shown all the signs of necrosis. Patient was quite toxic as such. That patient was treated with the Manjastharik Shara Basti, of course, the local treatment of wound cleaning, and you can see there is changes seen in 2 days, 3 days, and so on. By 5th day, you can see the changes of the vascularity. The tissue had become healthy, and we could close the stump with a resuturing. So after 6th day, I did that suturing of the wound without a amputation, another amputation. The wound healed well, and now the patient is walking with a artificial limb. So the important is when a contemporary surgical facility has failed and a third amputation was suggested, we could reduce the misery of that third amputation by making use of the basti, and this is a very huge, significant contribution in the contemporary situation. Anyway, that's about the basti being used as a see, and another of the option of the treatment suggested by Srishti is the Uttara Basti, and Uttara Basti is mentioned mainly in case of the lesions related to the urinary tract, Artava dosha and the Basti doshas. Bandhana or the bandaging is another unique procedure which is helpful in the management of the wound. Srishti has described that Bandhana protocol very in detail with all that 14 types of the Bandhana. These days, the plasters, stickers, and so on, they have reduced that art of bandhana, they have minimized the utility of art of that bandaging, but still they are useful. I am not saying that they are not useful. And most of the times, none of the surgical discipline, none of the surgical texts would describe the procedures of bandaging in as detailed as that of Sushruta. Then another of the option is patradana, that applying a green leaf with the medicated oil or medicated tea over the wound, which is also a very practical condition, particularly to reduce the loss of fluid in case of a burn wound or in case of pemphigus vulgaris. These are the two conditions where we use patradana quite frequently, and the major advantage is the wound will be, it will be easy to handle the wound. The leaves would not stick to the surface, and hence the bandage would be less painful, and it will also reduce the fluid loss. Primigna is another of the option. It's rather preventing the sepsis as such. So it's something like anti-infective measure and maintenance of the hygiene as such. Brahmana is the other option of the treatment. When the patient has shown all the signs of malnourishment, Vranashoshana has occurred, a Brahmaniya Vidhi has to be used. That's Brahmaniya is administering the Brahmaniya Dravyas, the nourishment. So Langhana is the first option in any case of the condition, disease condition. Brahmana is only in that specific conditions where the patient has shown the signs of Shoshana, where the Brahmana has to be done. Then Vishagna is very specific, where there is a poisonous contamination. An antidote for the poison has to be used so that it can be neutralized as it. Shirovirechana is the other option only in those wounds which are related to the ENT area. It will be Nasya. I think going into the detail of Nasya would be out of our purview with the time limitations. And Nasya also is the other option. The difference between Nasya and Shirovirechana and those issues, we will not go into that part. The basic issue is Nasya is a Snigdha Dravya, whereas Shirovirechana is a Tikshna Dravya. Kavalagraha, which also is a part of Swasthavrata, is mentioned in the context of Purana, particularly the wounds which are in the mouth, oral ulcers, the stomatitis-like conditions. Practically, is a very useful condition which can be selectively used. Similarly, Gritapana is also another of the indication, particularly in Urveda Trudata Vyadhi as such. Madhukrita as a Sandhana in the Sadhyavrana is another of the option. We have tried it in many post-operative wounds with significant satisfactory results. In a post-operative wound, application of a Madhukrita helps in a better healing. There is no risk of sepsis as such. So it's a very practically useful management, but it's mainly in the fresh wounds, but not in chronic wounds. Then Yantrana is a unique feature, a maintenance of a position of the patient with some restriction of the movements. Now these days you have many spleens being used, which can be considered as the yantranas. When the wound has a deep location and hence it cannot be handled with the simple hands as such, you may make use of the surgical instruments for treating the wound. Ahara, we have already reported that in the beginning. The general precaution about the diet is a lagu ahara. Brahmana is only in those conditions where you have a possibility of a severe malnourishment. Rakshogna is a very general procedure which is mentioned in case of every Vrana conditions. I think it's simply a mentioning maintenance of the hygiene. Rakshogna Vidhi is mentioned by Sushruta, and that is in detail. We will not go into that detail. With that, we'll come to the last concluding point. The important is the management of wound described in Ayurveda is very elaborate, and virtually no other system anywhere does have that kind of a detail. And every aspect of the wound healing is taken into consideration. Every possible complication is handled, and many of the techniques can be a solution to the problems of the present day. And rather, you will have Ayurvedic management would always have an upper edge in managing many of those intractable wound conditions as such. And another very appreciable part of this Sushruta's description is these 60 procedures. If you feel that these 60 procedures are elaborate and too much for the detail, they can be summarized into 7 upakramas. So Sapta upakramas, where the first few are mentioned for the dosha, shodhana, vimlapana, and the next is avasechana, and then upanahana, patana kriya. So drainage, surgical intervention would be the next aspect. Then once you have drained, shodhana and ropana has to be done, and vaikratapaha like Krishna karma and Dharana karma or Pandu karma, they can be considered as vaikratapaha. But all 60 could be summarized into 7, and that's the unique description method of Sushruta. With this, thank you. And if there are any questions, I will try to answer a few of the questions. There is already one question. What is the Ayurvedic management for keloid? For keloid, Sushruta doesn't mention any specific management, but based upon the lakshanas, the option should be chedana. The surgical excision should be the option of the treatment. Practically, I don't suggest that the chedana should be done in every case, because practically, once you have excised, the results would not be better. There is always a risk of recurrence. So that's one question by Nayan. Right. Any other questions? If there are any questions, we'll try to deal with that. Then while
Sir, there are 2 questions flashing here.
I think I have seen. I'm not able to see any other question. Only one question is about that Ayurvedic management for keloid.
Sir, I will read it out for you.
Okay.
Yes. The question is how to advise apatarpana to patients practically. How long it has to be done?
The advice is simple. You advise the patient to take light food. What I would suggest is ganji in our area. Ganji is something like khichdi, which is used in elsewhere, and not to use any of the junk food. So that's it. So which is easily digestible is the better option. There is a question by Madhuri Hegde, refer to a study of Kshara Karma with the formation of hair follicles. Practically, can Kshara be used for Roma Sanjanana purpose? No, that's not for the Roma Sanjanana purpose. Kshara is used only in hypergranular ulcers as such. So it's not for Roma Sanjanana. Roma Sanjanana is when the scar has shown the loss of hair, that it will be producing the hairs as such. But a wound formed by the Kshara, when it heals, it has a unique feature. That's the point. So Kshara cannot be used for Roma Sanjanana. This difference has to be maintained. Okay. Then there is another question. Jambavati, yes. Dallana explains Abhyanga as a special karma for Visravana and Yeshana. For Sechana, what may be the rationality? No, I think the Abhyanga is mentioned as a protocol, a Puro Karma for any of the Shodhana. Now, whether this Shodhana has to be, this protocol has to be followed for Rakta Mokshana or not is the controversial issue. Most of the times when we practically do the Rakta Mokshana, we do not follow the protocol of Puro Karma. Theoretically, yes, it can be done. Then there is another question like Kshara Basti reference, sir, and how it is given. Can you explain? Kshara Basti is mentioned in all textbooks. Manjistadi Kshara Basti, which we use in our center, it is the Manjistadi Basti mentioned in Charaka Samhita Siddhisthana, and we make it as Kshara Basti adding Amla Kandika. The same yoga, Manjistadi yoga, is used as. Then there is another question, Dr. Aishwarya Lakshmi. Can all Vrana patients be given Basti Karma initially, only along with the external procedures provided for the patient fit to Basti, or is there any specific indication? I think I have answered that question. Basti is specifically indicated in Vata-Dishta Vrana, that's the ischemic ulcer, and quite frequently in case of wounds of the lower limb. So in any case of Vata-Dishta Vrana, Basti is indicated. I don't suggest that Basti could be an option for all Vranas. That's it. Then there is another question by Madhuri Hegde. How to understand Pachana, Utkarika, Dharana and Upanaha as different from each other? Of course, Utkarika is simply a part of Pachana. As an example, protocol mentioned by Sushil for the Pachana. Dharana is a very specific procedure where you will be using a squeezing mechanical substance over the surface so that it will be, pus will be drained out. Dharana is a protocol of draining, whereas Pachana is a protocol of controlled separation, in controlling the separation. So these are two different issues. Then there is another question by Vibha. Sadhyavrana or with the injury with the Shastras, there is mentioning of immediate application of Madhugrata and Seka with the St. Madhupata. Do these modalities act as a prophylaxis for tetanus? I don't say that it will be acting as a prophylaxis for tetanus, but definitely Madhugrata would be help in healing better. Healing will be faster, scar will be minimal. Then even after following these, is TT shot warranted? So that TT shot, in my practice, I never use the TT shot unless there is a real need. Like, see, the real TT would be required if there is a possibility of a deep contaminated wound. Only an growth of anaerobic organisms, then only the TT is required. And let me now be clarified that tetanus toxide given after a wound formation would not give you any defense. So it has become somewhat a regular practice, customary practice. One of the superstitions of the medical practice, like giving TT, would be protective. If you have to have a protection with the TT, you have to give at least 3 months before the wound has formed, if possible. So then there is another Sri Vidya Bharat. Namaste. Can Triphala Kashaya be advised for Karnapurana in case of wound infection of ear canal? Yes, of course, it can be. It can be, but when you use a Karnapurana, you have to ensure it's not for Purana, rather cleaning. Maybe use the word Karnadhavana. Cleaning of a discharging condition from the ears for irrigation. Definitely, yes, Triphalapata can be used with all the benefits. Right. I think I have answered all the questions. Thank you.
Sir, I have one small
Yes,
query.
please.
Yes, how frequently can we use Kshar, Pratisaraniya Kshar in case of Vrana? How
Kshara is
frequent?
used only once. See, it's only once. It's not for regular use. In case of wound, only once to remove that fibrous tissue and give an opportunity to the wound to heal by its own. It's something like a ATKT facility. If a student has failed once, you give him another opportunity to pass through. So that's it. It's not that you use the Kshara regularly for prolonged duration. Okay, I think
Okay,
we will
okay.
conclude. Thank
Yes,
you.
yes.
Thank you again.
Thank you, Sharma sir, once again for your time to our listeners. And we will conclude our session today. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.